Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, the book corner book storage, or the corner book storage. Yeah, maybe you're expecting that Red Lovin is showing up as he runs the show amazingly, my dear colleague. Unfortunately, for weather conditions, he cannot join us. So I'm here. My name is Roland Friedl, and if you never heard about me, as you can hear from my accent, I'm not American. I'm from Austria, from the center of Europe, a little, small, beautiful country in the center of Europe. And actually, at the moment, I'm broadcasting from an RV from Sicily, Italy. So I'm really excited about running this show together as a host together, because I started as an author this year. So Red Lovin helped me to publish my first English-speaking book in the US. It's a business book, The Innovation Edge. And actually last week, my first German book, Daddy, Where Are You? In English, Papa, Wo bist du? Is delivered to the bookstores in the German-speaking countries. So it's an honor and a pleasure that I can run the show today. And it's not about me. I have a fabulous guest. He's a best-selling author, writing more than 30 books, I guess 38 books or something like that. And we are going to talk today at USA Global TV and Radio about Peace, Love, and Murder, the Charles Manson story. Welcome, Alan W. Alan R. Warren.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hello, Alan. It's an honor and a pleasure for me, and to be honest, a little bit nervous for the show inauguration, but I'm very, very looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, it'll be good. Not to worry.
So, great. Alan, I guess we don't have to introduce. Everybody knows you. You've been writing amazing crime books. I guess in every household, if somebody loves crime books, they have a book of you. So I really want to dive into it directly in your new book, Peace, Love, and Murder, the Charles Manson story. Actually, there are so many crime cases that you have written. Why did you return to Charles Manson now? Or now it's published, but I guess the research started earlier. But why coming back to Charles Manson?
Well, I think what it was initially I had a lot of interviews with different family members, people that were part of the Manson group. And I was putting that together over years, and it was about a 15-year process. So, and I wasn't doing it with the intention of writing a book. That wasn't even on my mind. But I started getting into the 60s, writing another case. And this book started out with writing from 65 to 70, what it was like in San Francisco and Los Angeles, like the communities. And so that's where it started. And what happened was Manson just sort of showed up, so to speak. And I thought about tying Manson in, and that's kind of what I did. So this is really a book about 65 to 70 and what was going on in the country and how Manson sort of entered it and worked his way through it. So he's kind of like a character in a history book, and that's kind of where it started. And that's how it became what it was.
Okay. And when you mentioned Manson, was Manson after your research, and I guess it's spent a lot of time on that, was he a criminal mastermind or more product about his environment? What do you think?
I think more about the environment. I think he could have only been who he was and did what he did in that environment what was going on in the country and the world, just the setting of the peace love movement, as well as the location. So it was kind of a combination of all. I certainly don't think he was a mastermind, because as you go through each of his crimes, you start to realize that he was acting and reacting to things that were happening in his world, so to speak, in his area. He didn't sit there and plan out all these things. It was all something happened. He reacted by committing murder, usually, or at least attempting to commit murder. And that's sort of how they happened.
Okay. It's amazing. I was born in 64, 1964, and I love the music from there. Woodstock and all this stuff from my parents' side. And when you say this love, peace, and happiness, this sexual freedom and the hippie, and then a person like Manson shows up on the screen. What do you think? How do you explain his psychological grip over his followers?
Well, he sort of, right from the beginning, when he got out of jail and he was in Berkeley just before San Francisco, and he was living with Mary, that was his first kind of spouse. And she was out working and supporting their apartment, and he was out getting girls and bringing them home. And eventually he had like another 10 or 12 girls living there. And he was able to convince her that it was okay. So he sort of learned to manipulate, and I think he manipulated people in specific. Like, he was really into the younger set, the younger girls. He knew how to look at them, make them feel important, make them feel loved and special. And that's what his big strength was. I don't think there was any super mastermind going on. He was just trying to get the girl and the family together, so to speak. He just liked having people around him,
Okay. When you mentioned manipulation, do you think he was a charismatic person, or just he was a good manipulator?
I think he was a good manipulator, but what he did was he learned how to use what he had. Like there's a lot of 14, 15-year-old girls that were just running away or being dropped off by their parents. This is like the love peace generation, and they were hanging out in the Haight-Ashbury. And you have someone like Manson, who's like 10, 12 years older, and he seemed to have it all together. He was cool. He had long hair, and he had a place, and he had all that stuff. And he would spend a huge amount of time with each girl until they were in living with them. Do you know what I mean? He would sit there and focus on them and tell them how beautiful they were, and that's sort of what they needed at that time, because they were sort of in an insecure place. If you're 14, 15 and you're just hanging out on the street, he gave them a lot, and he seemed to understand them. So it was a combination.
Okay. Got it. A question for our younger audiences: do you see any parallels between Manson and, as a modern day charismatic influencers, on Instagram or TikTok or whatever?
Yeah, you see it all the time. It's people that are in need of something, and they're getting it from this character. And you can see it in politics. You see it you've seen it in music and movies for years, where people become fanatics, extreme fans. They paint their body and dress up like their favorite star, and they go follow them around city to city. There's always that. I think today it's different because it's different setting, with the internet and social media. It's a lot easier to follow, and it's a lot easier to be connected with them. As before, you would have to go to where they lived, like you'd have to go to San Francisco, for instance. And so that eliminated a lot. I think today he would have been a much more dangerous person in a different way, because he has access to so many more people through social media. But whether it would have worked or not online as compared to in person, I don't know,
Yeah. what do you think that, especially, well, it was young girls. I see this, I'm involved in the yoga world since 1990, so many years, and there's a lot of fraud going on, sexual abuse in the yoga world, all these gurus and stuff like that. Why is it so easy to catch young women for some certain purposes?
I don't know. I guess I'm not a doctor enough to know that. I think it's just the young age. I think you could probably catch the young men as well. In his particular case, he did with a few, but that wasn't his goal. It wasn't what he had in mind, but I think he could have if he would have aimed at them and looked for the right thing. So I think it's more about youth, inexperience, and there's something else going on when you almost fall in love with your guru, so to speak, where everything they do is perfect, everything they do is correct, they couldn't do anything wrong, and you become that follower where that person is perfect in any situation. That's when it crosses the line and it becomes an issue, because there's nobody like that. Nobody at all is perfect.
Absolutely. I guess it's also, I have 3 kids, and they're all raised up, but it's also very difficult as a parent when you find out that your kid is, I say, addicted to a certain movement or a certain person or peer group. It's very difficult as a father or as a mother to be preventive and see the signs what's going on there, that people become dependent.
Well, because you've got experience, you've lived some life, you've seen it before over the years. We've lived through Manson and many other cults and groups that have come and gone. So we have that experience, and you have a youth that's 15 years old or something today. They were born far after that. So they have no idea. They don't have that experience. So, you can watch a movie, but it's not the same as when you're living through and seeing Jim Jones and everyone killing themselves drinking the Kool-Aid. That's something that you can't forget. But if you weren't alive then, you don't know. And then we also think of ourselves as infallible, right? So we don't, especially when you're young, right? You're young, you know everything, and you know what you're doing, and you don't need to be told. And you think everything's going to be perfect. So you don't see yourself getting into a bad situation or being in trouble from something like this. So it's easier that way. If you have that mindset to go and no experience in life, and you think everything's perfect, and you know everything, you can get tricked into something pretty easily.
Absolutely. I'm a lot on social media because I promote my books and the work I'm doing, and I'm always wondering how many followers are coming and interesting what I'm doing. I said, don't you have your own life? Why are you following me or following a celebrity or whatever? So
it's a whole different world, right? We sort of I see the same thing. I said now I have 102,000 followers now on Facebook. And I'm just thinking, wow, I'm the same guy sitting here writing and doing my thing and playing with my dogs and hanging out. And it's just bizarre. So it's a whole different world from what you and I are used to. We're used to getting a dial phone and phoning someone. Like, this is a totally different world. So, but there's all sorts. And you see it more with the internet.
Absolutely. Someone said once, I heard a quote, it says to people, be less impressed and more involved.
Yeah.
Well, be less impressed by other people, be more involved in what you are doing, what you drive, and what you want to do
that's
in
true.
your life.
It's true. As you write more and do more and you get more going on, I find the best thing to do is to not listen to that noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and the internet's one of them, and social media is one. The more you can avoid that, the better you will be at your writing, at everything you do, because your focus will be on your writing and your life and what you're doing. If you start to drift and listen to people that are saying things on social media, or follow them, respond, and get into these deep, go back and forth and stuff on social media, what happens is you get taken out of your zone, so to speak, and what you're doing and who you are, and you start following what's going on. That changes how you write, and it also what you want to put out, because it changes your view on what people are listening to, so avoid the noise as much as possible. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember when my kids started on social media and they said, "Oh, Dad, this is cool and this is cool. I want to have this." And I always said, "Do we really want it, or is it just a nice to have thing because A, B, C, D celebrity has it? But is it
Yeah.
really what you? Is it your truth,
Yeah.
or is it something you're just following something because you believe it's cool?"
Yeah.
It's
And
really,
it's crazy. But, and when we're talking about the differences, the important part of writing 65 to 70 was the setting, because in some of it, like one of his followers or one of the family members he called her Snake. That's a perfect example, because she was dropped off by her parents. So her parents gave her to Charles Manson and his group when she was 14. And even later, when they were arrested for some small crime and the police picked them up, and she was in the van, they realized she was only, I think, 15 at the time, and they got a hold of her parents. They came and got her and then give her back to Manson. But this is not weird. It is to us now, but back then that was common. A lot of
mm,
people were giving their kids to other communes and groups and thinking it
yeah.
would be great, and it was part of the peace love experiment, I guess. And so it was really, really unusual. Angela Lansbury let her 15-year-old hang with the commune for over a year and
Mm,
party. So this was just kind of a normal thing, almost like how you could say something's normal with social media today. So he had access to people directly that I don't think you would get that today.
mm, mm, mm. Absolutely. I have some friends. I will be 62 this year, and I have some friends who also have been raised in communities, in different communities, also in Europe, strange cults, and it was very common. Actually, my parents gave me away more or less to the church because they have been working all the time. They had no time for myself and my brother, and I was sexually abused for many years, and they found out, and they still sent me there. They still sent me there.
That was just the way it was,
Yeah,
church or
absolutely.
a commune or a friend or an uncle,
Yeah.
whatever.
No, no, no. Ellen, I want to come back to your book. My question is, what does your book reveal that previous books did not about Manson?
I think I focused more on just as it happened, and more about how Manson took it as a response. So, like, when his friend, sort of group follower, not totally, but he did things for Manson, Bobby Bousley, when he went and killed Gary Henman and was arrested for it, Manson responded by saying, "We'll have to go out and do another killing and make it look like it was a Black Panther killing," and set it up just as Bobby Bousley had set up the Hinman murder by making it look like a Black Panther murder. So that was kind of the idea. So it wasn't a planned out thing. It was like something happened, he responded, and then they went and did the Tate murders first, which, because it didn't turn out well, he was angry and he went to the LaBianca murders the next day to make sure the police think that it was done by Black Panthers. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I don't know if people always get that in the story. I think a lot of people just think helter skelter. They heard the music and they believed this thing and they were going out and killing. And I think that he used that for his followers, but that wasn't really what was going on, right? There was more to it than that.
Mm.
I was going to say too, while you're at it, before that, Manson had gone out and with one of his followers, family members, and they went to a drug dealer, Lots of Papa, and his intention was to kill him and rob his money. Manson shot him, and they took the money. I mean, there's a detailed story in the book about that. But when he left the next day in the paper had mentioned about a murder of a Black Panther drug dealer. He thought it was the one that he had shot. It wasn't. The guy he shot actually survived. And
Okay.
so what happened was, I went on guard and he started telling his commune that the Black Panthers were going to come get them. And so they put 24/7-hour guards. He always had 2 or 4 people walking around the ranch with rifles all night long, waiting for the Black Panthers. So he was scared of something that was going to happen in his mind, but it would have never happened because he didn't shoot the Black Panther, and the guy he shot lived. So, but you can see how he did things and how he reacted. It wasn't so much like he sat there and go, "This is what we're going to do." So that's sort of what I wanted to detail.
Okay. Did he have some kind of paranoia, do you think?
Oh yeah, it certainly grew into that, and his own agenda, his own idea of isolating his family members, so he would take them to the ranch or later to the Death Valley farm. He was trying to isolate them so that he could sort of manipulate them and tell them things and have them as just getting one side of the story, which a lot of cults sort of did back then. And so that was his intention. And so, but what that did was that also isolated himself. There were things that he was missing out on and things he didn't understand. It was almost like someone that would see things on the news. So he would see the race riots and things going on. So in his mind, the blacks were going to take over. That was his thought. Oh my God, and so that's what he was thinking. And that sort of, and that paranoia grew and grew.
Do you mean that he was a racist?
Yes.
Oh
yeah. Oh, definitely. He had problems with the African Americans right from prison when he'd always get attacked and beat up, and he got a real anger toward them. And then he gets out, and then after he shot lots of Papa, and he thought he was being watched and targeted by the Black Panthers, it only got worse. And each day that went by, he became more paranoid. And, and like I said, being isolated and doing drugs didn't help the situation. It made it worse because, you start to believe your own hype, so to speak, because that's all you have is your own inner circle going around and around day after day after day. And every day you're talking stories. Eventually you start to really believe it, I guess. And he got in a really bad situation.
Do you think that he maybe never recognized or never saw reality that he was not not important enough for the Black Panthers?
No. And I think that's even, you see that. And also he wanted to be that rock star, right? And he was doing music and he was hanging around pop people and producers and, the Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson, and he was cutting demos. He thought he was really important. And it's true. And after a couple of years, he believed he was really man's son. He was Jesus. He was the new Jesus, so to speak. He was the new entity, so he really started getting into it. Like it grew and it grew,
What do you think about media's responsibility? When you bring a lot of news about a person like Manson or whatever, a gun, I don't know, a sniper, whatever. So people feel important, feel seen.
Yeah.
But most people, I believe that most people who kill other people or snipe in a school or whatever, they've never been seen. They want to be seen, recognized, acknowledged, whatever. What's media's responsibility about this?
Well, the media is really, it's really a tough one because in today's climate, there's that whole generation of fake news and the idea that major media broadcasts, NBC, CBS, all that is sort of a, it's fake news and it's bought and paid for and all sorts of stuff. So you got that going on, and I see that. But I also see back then, so many people today will say, I wish it was back to the Walter Cronkite days, when news was real and all that stuff. But in the 60s, the news was just as, how do you say, sensationalized. I mean, when you look at the reports after the Tate murders, major news media, newspapers and networks were reporting that the Tate household was a satanic sexual ritual place and that it was a drug deal gone bad, that they had sacrificed a goat. There was all sorts of stories in the media for about 8-9 months that were not even close to true. And these were major media. And so I kind of think that's terrible. When you look at Roman Polanski later, who was Tate's husband, director, and he talked about the media 9-10 minutes later, he was devastated. He was really, really screwed up from that because they said some terrible things about that family and that group that weren't even a bit of truth. There was nothing to it, but they said reliable sources. and it was really, how can you do that when you're supposed to be a media like that's, and get away with it? So I think people have a weird idea about media. They use it when they need it and when they want it, but when they don't like it, then they're the bad guy. So I think they become more of a setting, more of a player in it. So I think they were bad in this case, but they're good and bad in all cases, depending on what they're doing and where you're getting your source from and what their idea is. It's really confused me. I don't have a cut and dry answer for media anymore, because when I saw those articles, you're thinking, what? Where did this come from? How can you report that? And say it on like a Washington Post? How can you be on a headline news that this is what's going on your paper? And it's not even true. It's not even close to true. Like, where does that come from and why was that allowed? But they did it. And that makes it worse. Yeah, it really does. Because then, you get to the point where people believe different things and you start tainting the jury, so to speak. Yeah, it's bad.
It's all about, nowadays to get followers, in the early days to get, I don't know, people who buy the newspaper or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You had like 3, 4, 5 editions a day coming out, people selling it. And you had to have some hot headline to throw it, goat sacrificed at the Tate killing place, right? Of course you're going to pick that up, because it's like, what? And you read it. That's kind of the crazy stuff, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
But people's memory is very short, of the readers. And there's a saying, I don't know how I can translate it correctly from German into English, but it says, "In today's newspaper, tomorrow we wrap the fish."
Yeah, exactly. Because and actually doing a lot of history and writing a lot of stories like this, I go through the newspapers and I have like 5, 6, 7 of them, and I go through every single day's reading, because you have to get all the information. Plus you also have to make the setting, because someone that's born in 2000 doesn't know what it's like to live in 1965, and they have to understand the differences. So I make sure I go through each paper each day. You got to pick up the sayings, you got to pick up what's important, what's going on, what's happening. That's why in the book we talk about the moon landing, and we talked about the race riots, we talked about the Black Panthers, all these things that were going on around, because they're all set the stage and they're all very important to understand what was going on in the community, because then you can understand why people act and respond to things at that time differently than maybe you would today. It's a different world. So it's really important to kind of cover that. But even when I go through these papers, they had the same complaints and the same things they were complaining about in the papers back in 65 were much the same as today. Immigration, race, homosexuals, you name it, they had it. And it was just different names, different leaders, and different people, but it was the same problems they were complaining about. Yeah. It's kind of strange.
Alan, throughout your journey, or throughout your research, I call it a journey, did your perception about Manson change? Did you get emotionally involved, or you just saw it from a helicopter perspective? Or
I think you get somewhat emotionally involved, but for me, it was more involved in the characters involved more than Manson himself, because you get to meet a lot of the people that were involved, let's say family members, and talk to them, and people that were even survivors and stuff, like with any crime case. The more people you get to meet and involved and know, the more it affects you, and you become a little bit more emotional about it because it's more important. With Manson himself, I didn't feel anything toward. I think I learned about him a little bit better from the other perspectives, but I never became closer to him per se. There wasn't a connection there. So, and I think that makes the big difference.
Got it. I mean, people are going to buy the book. Manson is still in the media coming up, and books are coming always up. Why do you think that, or on the other hand, what does it say about our society that we are still fascinated about a person like Manson? I mean, this is 60 years ago.
Yeah. Specifically why people pick certain characters that hold their attention for 60 years. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I still haven't figured it out. I don't know if anybody has. But it's certainly that when you talked about that emotional connection, they must have some emotional connection to the victims or to the situation. There's something about a case that connects you to where you think about it and you hold on to it. It becomes a part of your own life. And so it could be the action, it could be the situation. I think with Manson, it was the idea that he gathered together a lot of young, innocent girls and a few guys, and they created havoc and they killed a lot of people and they hurt a lot of people. And how can you take these normal young 15-year-old girls and you turn them into murderers? I think that's sort of the key to his case, that people, because so many people have children and they all have a daughter and son that are young teens, it has to resonate with, wow, could my kid do this? And of course you think no, but there's something in the back of your mind. It's like, well, how did these normal good kids get brought into this situation, this lifestyle and this bad stuff? So it's kind of it's something personal that keeps us connected, I think. That's my best guess.
Okay. Because it comes to my next question is, when you write true crime stories, isn't there a risk to, hopefully I pronounce it correctly, to glamorize dangerous figures?
Oh, there's always that. I think that it depends on how you write it and how you put it out there. In typical, like Manson's one of the few where he's got kind of part of the title of the book and he's a main character, but there's so much more to it. Like I said, this is a story of 1965 to 1970, San Francisco, Berkeley primarily, and there's a lot of things going on in the book. He's just one that works his way through. It's almost like things are happening and you've got this guy named Manson that is there doing things to act and react to what's going on in the community. So I think that I do it that way, and I don't glamorize usually the killer. Like even if you look at any of the previous books, I'm not the guy that focuses on the killer as much as the victims and the situation. I think I'm more bringing out, how did this happen? Where did this happen? And who was involved and why? I'm looking at that. And I don't, same as you'll see it, like even when you go through the killings, I make sure people know what happened in the situation, the murders, how it went down, so to speak. But I don't focus on it, and I certainly don't. There's nothing. It's short, and that's it. It's just to the point, and I don't get into making it sound. I don't talk about the heat in the room and the smells and the blood and all that stuff. That's not what I do. There's plenty of authors that do, and they do it well. That's not what I do, because that doesn't fit what I'm doing. I'm hoping that people that buy this book are looking for a book more about the history and the timing and the situation and what was going on, more than I don't glamorize Manson either. It's got a very basic short bio in the beginning, so you know who he is, but he's not. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to do that. I want people to think about the situation. So hopefully you come out of this thinking, well, if you do have a young teenager, could they actually get into something like this? How does this happen in this situation? And would I be good at dealing with my kid if they started following someone? I'm looking at it more from that point of view. So I hope it doesn't glamorize Manson in any way.
Because it's always the risk, because on the other hand, we have the cultural background, we have Manson, his followers, but we also have the victims. It's all about that, overshadowing the victims. That's always a risk.
No, it's a tough one. It really is. And you have to I think what it is you have to kind of go, why am I writing this? What am I writing about? What do I want the reader to get? And for me, there's a subtext. There's an idea that this is something that happened, and it's happened to a lot of our children in the 60s, and not just with Manson. There's several groups this happened with, and not just America. So we have to look at the situation and understand it in a way of, well, how did this happen, and why? Can we figure this out so that we can move forward, spotting the differences and seeing that happen? Let's say if it happened today, or if it happened to your child or to someone you know, at least you have kind of an outlook, kind of something to kind of go by and say, well, this is, people do fall for this, people do get into this, and this is how they do it, and good people do. So you have to kind of go, it's more about the situation, I think, and the time for me when I write. So I hope that comes across that way too. That's certainly what I wanted.
I think so. I guess so.
Yeah.
I have a personal question, you know, as I'm writing too. Well, actually non-fiction at the moment, but again, how does it, immersing yourself in the stock material affect your personality?
Well, I think I think for me, I think it doesn't, but I know it does. But it's too hard for me to tell because I'm too close to it. I think when you do things, and no matter any job you're doing, you if you get into it and you're doing the job fairly well, you work it. You know, you're doing it. It becomes a part of your life, your daily life, and it's on your mind. So as things come up, when this is on your mind, you will probably act or react a little differently than before or after. So each time you write a book, you'll go through that, and you'll go through some growth, so to speak. And at the end of the book, you kind of let go of it. Like now it's kind of like gone. It's not mine anymore. And you probably heard other authors say that. And it's true, because there's a point where once it comes out, you feel really good. Everything's done. And a little bit of time passes, then you kind of are focused on something else, and you start moving forward, and you let go of it, and it's just out in the world. You know, it's just there. I don't, you know, but it's definitely the process of writing any book, whether it's true or not, will have an effect on you somewhat, and you will come out of it differently, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that, you know, writing a book like this and having the responsibility about publishing a book like this, is with all the things we have discussed now, it's a lot of work you have to do. Do you think that this project left any unanswered question to you, or so that everything is clear, or are there still any questions that are not answered, do you think, in this case?
Oh, there will always be questions. You know, the thing is, with time and time passing the way it does, and there will always be questions. There will be things we won't know, because we won't really know Manson's inside motives and working thinkings. We can guess and we can put things toward it, but there's so much more to it than we know. And I think that's sort of the timing. And something like this that's 60 years past, I don't think we really ever will understand it, you know. But you know, some things we can, but I don't think we will. Not to the point of, you know, of what we'd be satisfied.
Yeah. Alan, you already mentioned a little bit, but I really want to wrap up a little bit for parents who are listening. And there's one question I want to ask you is, what warning signs from the Manson case are still relevant today? You mentioned a little bit about young people, but just as what is really relevant for nowadays? What warning signs should parents listen or take care about their kids?
I think if I mean, you know, your child, and if you've got a teenager and they start doing things that are unnegotiable, like where things are 100% for them, things are like they've met this person, they're doing this thing, they belong to this group, or they're doing some sort of something. If it becomes 100%, if it becomes everything that they want, and it becomes the focus, the direction in their life, that's always a problem. That's always something you need to get involved in and see why. What is it that they're looking for by doing this? And it's hard to do as a parent a lot of times, because I think parents feel responsible, and then they get emotional. And the more emotion we have in a situation, the less logic we use. And you see that all the time, every day. Just go on social media, right? But I think a lot of it is they've got to be calm, and they've got to be able to talk to their kids and find out what it is. I mean, because you have to really understand it. I mean, in the 60s, people going to Woodstock, people listening to the Rolling Stones or Beatles were, there was some crazy stuff people did, but was going to the airport and screaming at the Beatles when they came and landed, was that really bad for your kid? I mean, or is it just being a kid? So there's certain things they can do. I think it's just the all or nothing. When a child becomes, that's everything they do is for that reason, for that person, for that group. And everything that group does is right. When they start looking at it and acting that way, that's when you've got to be concerned, right?
Oh, yeah. Because, for some people, satanic cults are always attractive. I mean, I want to go too deep now. Like when you look at the Epstein files and stuff like that, what's coming up. So it's always this.
There's always something, and you as a parent, because you'll be out of touch, because we get older, you don't know the latest music, the latest things that's cool and what's good. You have to find out, and a lot of that's probably the hardest thing, because when you're young and a teenager, you're in the scene, what's cool, what's in, and you're kind of into that stuff and what your friends are doing. But when you're 50, you don't, you might know Taylor Swift or something, right? But you don't really know the scene. So you gotta invest some time and find out what it is and what they are into, and
absolutely.
see whether it's dangerous or not, right? They're going to a Taylor Swift concert. That's not a big deal. It might be kind of a exciting thing for a kid, but it's not really anything life-threatening. So it's just knowing, and you got to take a little time and research and kind of find out what your kid's into and why, and kind of what the group is about, and kind of look around online and spend a little time. And I think you'll find out.
Absolutely. I remember when my kids were smaller and they started with their own smartphones and texting. I couldn't even understand the word texting me with all these abbreviations using. I have no idea.
That's what I mean. It changes fast.
Absolutely.
It changes fast, and you just got to dedicate the time.
Alan, we're coming to the end. It was an amazing conversation with you. Absolutely. I have one final question for you.
Sure.
If you could ask Charles Manson one question today, what would it be?
Oh, geez, I don't know what I would say. I really don't, because the thing is, with Charles Manson, I don't think I'd get a truthful answer. I think I would get what he wanted me to think, because there's something he wanted. Like, you ask him something, he would, because he put on a show, right? Dance around and sing, or he'd be angry in a second, he'd do all that. That was all showmanship. He was good at that. And I think that if I was sitting there as a book writer, or maybe as a reporter or something, if I asked him something, he would think, well, what do I want that audience to think of me? And he would put on that kind of a moi, and give me that answer. And so I wished he would be truthful, is the best I could say, but I don't think it's not going to happen. And so, maybe if I got to see him, maybe if I got to see him at 20 years old, before all this, and talk to him, it would be a better conversation into finding out where his head's at, rather than afterwards, because it's so much has went down that I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, thank you so much. I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you. And you too. Good luck on the book.
Thank you. Stay healthy. That's the most important thing.
That's all that matters.
All the way. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Take care of yourself.
Thanks. Bye. Whoa. This was an amazing communication with Alan Warren about his newest release. And as it mentions, it's not just about Manson, it's all about the time and the culture. And, I was so deep into this communication that we totally forgot to share his website. So I'm going to do it now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to check Alan's website. It's alanwarren.com. And then you see all about him, but you also see about his books, and you can view his books. So just have a look on his website, alanwarren.com. Yes. So we're coming to an end. We're closing up. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to us. If you missed a part of the show, don't worry. We stream live, but we also record the shows. So you find the recordings on YouTube, on different channels, on USA Global TV and Radio, also on the YouTube channel, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and also linked it to mine, to Roland Media. Thanks for joining us. All the best. Stay healthy. Thumbs up if you love it. Get in communication with us. Sign up on our YouTube channel. All the best. And we see you soon. And if you want to see my shows in German every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central European time, I do a German-speaking show at the Macher Talk. And at 8 p.m. Central European time, I do the Mood Macher Talk in German. All the best and bye-bye.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.